What is happening right now? We're melting in the heat. Boris Johnson is our new Prime Minister, and the Bears were well and truly beaten by the West Wales Raiders at the weekend. Is this the end of the world as we know it? Well, I don't know about that, but we can definitely talk rugby league. We've got reaction and analysis from that match on Saturday and some other stuff too. This is the world's greatest podcast about the Coventry Bears. This is Bear Necessities. Yes, welcome to Bear Necessities, your favourite podcast about the Coventry Bears. We live at covbearspodcast.com. We're at covbearspodcast on Twitter. We're sponsored by York's Tim, and you can find our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and just about anywhere you get podcasts from. I'm one of your hosts, Dave Musson, and joining me as always, my co-pilot and former Bears fullback, Craig Cathcart. Craig, how are you doing?
I'm good, mate. That was a lovely intro.
Thanks.
I have to say, it did feel like the end of the world on Saturday, but having had time to reflect, I'm a lot more upbeat, and I just know the Bears will bounce back from this.
Definitely. Well, we will reflect on that disappointing afternoon for the Bears. We'll hear from head coach Tom Tsang, and we'll chat a bit about what Saturday's results could mean for the rest of the Bears season as well. But first, a bit of housekeeping to get through. So, number one, thanks so much to everyone who ordered a copy of the book that I've written about the Bears' 20th anniversary season that's raising money for charity. Those books will be here in the next few weeks, and some bonus news for you. If you didn't get round to pre-ordering a copy, well, you've not missed out. The club themselves are going to have some copies as part of the order, and they're going to be selling the book at this season's remaining home matches, so you can still get hold of one that way if you wish. You'll be supporting the club directly. So yeah, you've not missed out if you didn't get around to pre-ordering before this week. And two more quick things. First, make sure that you check out this week's BBC Rugby League podcast, because it features Bears Vice President Michael Shires, and he's setting out his vision for what the future of the Challenge Cup could look like if they followed a more Champions League style. He does it brilliantly. It's a great interview. And second, we should all just take a moment to revel in the beauty that is the Great Britain Lions shirt that was launched this week ahead of this autumn's tours. The shirt is delicious, as is the 90s inspired tracksuit top too, that I will kind of wish I was somebody who could pull off a tracksuit top, because it is amazing. I mean, Craig, they look great, don't they?
Yeah, it looks fantastic. I think, while I think I do support having individual nations for World Cups and everything else, the Great Britain team is an iconic shirt, isn't it? Great, iconic shirt, iconic team. Some of the biggest tests that there've ever been have been Great Britain against Australia, and it's a lovely shirt. They've got the design spot on this one, and actually I think it'll fly off the shelves. Any rugby league fan, plenty of rugby league fans out there are going to be buying that shirt because it just looks fantastic.
Definitely. I think Santa will be delivering lots of those this December. Right, so that's the good stuff done. Let's move on to Saturday's hugely disappointing trip to the West Wales Raiders, which saw the Bears beaten 44-16. That was the West Wales Raiders' first ever victory. The Bears were 20-0 down at half-time. They never really got into the game, despite tries in the second half from Rhys Rance, Errol Carter and Kobe Green. We'll offer our thoughts on the result and a bit more in a moment, but first let's hear what Bears head coach Tom Tsang had to say about it all. So yeah, I mean, obviously the trip down to Wales at the weekend would have been a game you were probably targeting to win, and perhaps many people would have predicted the Bears to win. It obviously didn't go your way, and West Wales ended up with their first ever victory. I mean, obviously you're going to be bitterly disappointed with how it went on Saturday, but tell me a bit about your thoughts on the game now you've had a couple of days to reflect on it.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing to say is that West Wales were excellent. They fully deserve the win, fully deserve the margin of the victory as well. So I can't sing their praises enough. They were very, very good. Without a shadow of a doubt, the best team from Wales, from the south of Wales, that we've played against in 5 years. Very, very clinical with the ball. I was very impressed how, considering they've not been in that position for ever in their existence in terms of being in the lead with the clock ticking down. They didn't falter in what they were doing. They stuck to the task. They stuck to the plan very well, and they executed the game plan very well. So full credit to them. In terms of us, very disappointing. Obviously, we had a lot of different people in the side than what we would normally have had. I'm sure that's something to do with why we didn't perform very well. But at the end of the day, it's no excuse really. We just couldn't hold on to the ball. I mean, we didn't complete a set, as in we didn't actually finish a set on our terms, get to a kick and make the first tackle of the next defensive set until the 35th minute in the first half. That's from knock-ons, that's from forward passes, that's from giving away penalties when we had the ball, that's from kicking the ball dead. And we just build any sort of momentum, any sort of pressure on the West Wales line. And a lot of it was to do with their enthusiasm. They were getting up in our faces and they were putting pressure on our skill. And some of the boys just sort of took their eye off the ball a few times. And obviously the more that goes their way, the more we get frustrated, the more we start trying to push things which we don't need to do, and obviously it's a downward spiral from there. So yeah, the second half was pretty much the same thing. We just couldn't hold on to the ball. I think for anyone that's interested, completion rate for us was just under 25% across the game, and obviously there was quite a few penalties on top of that. And I would say, I haven't sort of done any calculations, but I'd say they probably had about 80% of possession across the 80 minutes as well. So when you're doing that much defending, it's going to be very difficult, and we've only got ourselves to blame.
So what sort of things did you say to the guys at half time? Because obviously it was 20-0 at half time, but the way rugby league works, it's so much a game of momentum, and as you say yourself, like, had you been able to get a bit of the roll on, it might have put a pressure on West Wales and put them in a position they weren't in before. I mean, what was the mood like at half time? Was it downbeat? Did you still feel like you were in the game at that point?
Yeah, because we towards the end of the first half, when we did actually complete a couple of sets, West Wales defence was pretty ragged at times, and we actually had 2 or 3 opportunities even in 5 minutes that we had the ball in the back end of that first half. So we knew that if we just held on to it and we did build that pressure and we did actually start to make them defend back-to-back sets, that we could get some points on the board. And we actually, like, looking at the conditioning of the two teams, we were very, very tired because of the sheer amount of defending we did. But actually West Wales were pretty tired as well, despite how much little defence they had to do. So the message was just control the ball, turn it over on our terms, a lot better than we had been doing. Start to play a bit of a higher tempo with the ball, but not for forced passes or offloads that we didn't need to. Just, like I said, control, turn it over when we needed to, and in the areas of the field that we needed to, and we'd be able to inch our way back into the game. And we felt that because they hadn't been in that position before, if we could get a bit of scoreboard pressure on them, if we could get the sort of inch back in from 20 points down to 18, down to 10, etc., they might feel the heat a little bit. And obviously, we weren't able to hold on to that ball, so we never actually were able to put any scoreboard pressure on. Again, in the second half, when we actually did have sort of 5 minutes worth of continued possession, we managed to score tries pretty easily. So the story there is that if we'd have just done that for across 80 minutes, we probably I think might have been in with a shout. But again, fair play to West Wales. They put pressure on us, and we weren't able to handle it on the day.
Mm-hmm. And I know you mentioned it earlier in our chat about the fact that there were so many new or unfamiliar faces in the team, and I know you're never one to look for excuses, but the way the Bears squad has been just torn apart by injuries over the last few weeks, and the lack of continuity for a starting lineup from week to week, I mean, if not an excuse, it's certainly a mitigating factor right now in the season where you're at, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, anyone, and I think I said this before, but anyone that's been involved with sport of any sport at any level knows that when you're changing a team lineup week to week because of injuries, and you're bringing new players in who've only been able to train once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times before a game, there's got to be combinations that don't quite click. There's going to be cohesion issues. There's going to be times when communication isn't quite where it would be if you've got been training since pre-season, and that's why you have pre-season. Otherwise, if you could just bring people in, not make a difference, then you wouldn't bother with pre-season. You just roll straight into the league fixtures. So it certainly played a part, but like I said, we needed to just do the basics well, and we would have been in with a shout. We weren't able to do those basics well, and so what happened. The players that we fielded, although hadn't played together very much and hadn't trained together very much, 1 to 17 were all good quality players that are more than capable of playing at that level, were more than capable of sort of creating opportunities to win. So yeah, we just need to sort of take it on the chin really, and know that we are better, we can be better, and we will be better.
So how are things on the injury front? Like, we're going into a weekend off now, so when Keighley come to town on the first weekend of August, is there a chance that we'll see a few more Bears regulars back in the team, or is it still looking a bit dicey?
Yeah, so I mean, we've mentioned injuries probably for the last 2 or 3 conversations, but I probably haven't, and I don't think the club has actually sort of issued to people listening just exactly who is injured and who is out. So I'll just quickly run through some of the names. So we've got Ben Gray, Dan Gover, they're both out for the season with knee injuries. Will Tully and Lewis Taylor, who we had on the season-long loan, they're both out indefinitely with concussion issues. Ewan Tiernan is also out with a concussion, although could come back sooner. We've got Williams and Cam Pierce-Paul, who are both out indefinitely with rib injuries. We've got Nathan Conroy, who's out for the time being with a pretty bad wrist injury. And then there's 2 or 3 other guys playing with lots and lots of niggles and knocks. So you like Chris Barrett, etc. Ollie Purslow is playing on one knee. You've got guys there who are doing it tough for us as well. So that's kind of the guys that we got out. So we've got 6 starting props if they were available, and then obviously 2 starting centres, and then a couple of guys there on top of that are playing banged up. So it's not easy, and it's just week to week. It's just a case of trying to manage workloads and manage the sort of the real process to make sure that we can get them back as quick as we can. But also, we don't want to throw them in too soon and then they're out for even longer. So it's a bit of a balancing act. In terms of the question, I think I'm optimistic that at least one of Kadeem and Cam will be back for Keighley. I'm optimistic that Conroy will be back for Keighley. In terms of the prop situation, that's probably a little bit of an unknown still. Obviously, there's some guys there that just we know won't be back into that next game. But we're hopeful that maybe potentially Ewan Tiernan might just give us a bit of depth there. But obviously, he's an inexperienced player and has only played sort of 4 or 5 games at this level. So in terms of the experience that you need in that position, he doesn't bring that, but he does bring in a lot of energy and enthusiasm. So that will be helpful. But yeah, it's part and parcel of the game. You go into every season, you go into every game actually knowing that there's a high of picking up someone getting injured, and so it's just a case of how you manage it. And obviously every team will go through their patches where they've got lots of people on the sideline, but we're just having to do it tough right now.
Mm-hmm. And just lastly then, I mean, in terms of the rest of the season, there's obviously a week off now and then into the last 5 games. Is there anything you can use from the trip to West Wales to sort of almost act as a bit of a motivator and to get things moving for those final few games, be it some positives from Saturday or just the motivation of what happened and trying to right those wrongs over the rest of the season? How do you approach the run-in now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the guys themselves have said that they don't want to play any match again, full stop, and be and put in such a poor performance collectively across the board. There was 1 or 2 individuals that sort of made a decent account of themselves, but generally speaking, everyone was on par, and that's unusual. So yeah, I think there's just a collective sort of pact that we're going to make sure that we don't let ourselves drop to that level again. And it was an embarrassing performance, but not in terms of because it was West Wales. It was embarrassing because whoever we would have played, we would have struggled. We could have played an amateur team, we could have played anyone, and to not have that ball and ask ourselves to be able to defend that much in the game That's what was embarrassing. The fact that we just couldn't catch simple passes. We're taking our eyes off the ball and we're thinking ahead too much. And there was just a lot of things that were below our own standards and below our own ability, and something and a lot of performances that are as bad as have been put out since I've been playing for the club. And for everyone to put that sort of level of performance in at the same time, you're obviously going to get what you deserve off the back of it. So collectively, we're going to make sure that we're all together and we all bounce back from it.
Great stuff. Well, Tom, enjoy the week off, and I will see you back at it for Keighley in a couple of weeks.
Cheers, Dave. Appreciate it, mate.
So huge thanks to Tom, as always, for joining, especially after such a disappointing game. Now, Craig, I don't want to linger for ages on the result of this and become overly negative, because there's no point doing that, and that's not what this show is about. But we can't avoid it, and there's definitely lots of things to unpick here. I mean, we probably didn't see this coming, certainly not when you just look at the fixture list on paper, but it feels like Saturday was almost a perfect storm for the Raiders. It was a really depleted Bears team, a Raiders squad that had finally clicked and were really up for it and had home advantage, of course. I mean, now you've had a couple of days to chew over it. What do you think of Saturday's result?
I mean, firstly, before I go into any detail, I'd like to congratulate West Wales on getting their first win on the board.
Same here.
I think everyone associated with the club has stayed positive. Their fans have stayed positive. The players, I can't imagine what it's like to play in a team that loses week in, week out. I mean, if my tri-tag team loses a couple of games in a row, it depresses me. So God knows what it's like to play week in, week out and play against teams where you're getting, smashed every week. And, I think this season they've made steady progress. There's been glimpses in quite a few games that there's been a lot of improvement. Certainly earlier on in the season when they played the Bears, there was an improvement. They very nearly beat Scholars as well a couple of weeks after that. And last week as well, there was glimpses within the Keighley game that they were starting to click, and they have, and they deserve it. I'm massively disappointed with the Bears losing that game, because in reality, it probably should have been a banker of a result. But, taking nothing away from them at all, they've gone out and put in a tremendous performance and got the win. As I said, I'm massively disappointed, but perversely really pleased for West Wales and their fans and everyone at the club that they've managed to get this monkey off their back.
Yeah, and West Wales is a fantastic club run by fantastic people, brilliant supporters, everyone involved. Every involvement we've ever had with the West Wales Raiders over the course of doing this podcast has always been hugely positive. They've got a great ground, a great setup. So yeah, I agree with you completely. It's fantastic that they've finally got off the mark. Just a shame that they did it against our team,
But if you think about it though, again, I really didn't want to lose on the weekend, but if they're going to do it against anyone, and in terms of how the club reacts to it and everything else, the Bears probably were the team to do it against, because actually there's been a very pragmatic and measured approach taken by Tom, as you heard in his interview, and Alan and everyone else associated with the club in relation to this. Everyone at the club has no complaints about the result. There was mitigations, as you know, with the injury list, but everyone thinks fair play to them and good luck to them for the rest of the season for doing it. I mean, Alan put out a really good statement online after the game, and it does contrast with some of the reactions that the Bears have had when we've beaten some of the more established teams, where there's either been media silence or their team has been crucified for losing to the likes of the Bears. So, I mean, I don't know whether I'd probably just read out Alan's statement, because
go for it. Yeah,
it says it all about Alan's character and also the character of the club. So just give me a second and I'll just bring it up on my screen here.
Yeah, sure. I mean, while you're doing that, I mean, I would echo what you were saying about how how magnanimous the Bears have been in defeat this last couple of days, and how well they've approached it online. And like you say, compared to some of the teams we've seen over the course of doing this podcast that the Bears have beaten, I mean, I'm not saying I don't want to name names, because I'm about to name names, but like Hunslet, there was literally no coverage of that game at the end of last season on the Hunslet website and social media channels. It's almost like it didn't exist, and I think Workington were pretty good about it when we smashed them this year. But yeah, go on, go for it with Alan's statement.
Yeah, so this is what Alan said shortly after the game, and as I said, I think it really demonstrates his character. It demonstrates what the Bears are all about. He said, "Well done to West Wales Raiders today, defeating Coventry Bears. We had a very depleted squad, but no excuses. The better team won, and the Raiders deserve credit for their performance. The Bears will bounce back from this defeat, and it's not the first, and it won't be the last. We'll have some great win. We've had some great wins ourselves and milestones in the game, and this is one for them. We all want competition and competitive games so that we can progress the sport. I've seen some negativity online, which is very unfair on the clubs, and only the game loses out with naysayers and negativity. We are all trying to do the best that we can to progress rugby league and our businesses. One defeat is not the end, and it's all part of the journey. Ultimately, we are judged all the time in sport." As I said, I think that just sums it all up. He didn't need to say that. Sure, inside he was massively disappointed, but I've seen other comments as well from Ron Banks, who was at the game, congratulating West Wales on their result. I had some contact with Bears fans as well, before, during and after the game, and the fans as well were saying that the Raiders were thoroughly deserving of their win, and whilst the Bears weren't 100%, it's they won the game fair and square, and absolutely no complaints from the Bears on that.
And if there is another club in the whole structure of certainly the sort of the pro and semi-pro parts of rugby league that understands where West Wales have been over the last couple of years and understands what it's like to be the whipping boys for a bit, then the Bears are probably the best candidates right now. So there is a real understanding there and a real appreciation of how important and how big a milestone that Saturday's game is for the Raiders. And I think what was most interesting to me in Alan's statement was that nod to the fact that we do want this division to be competitive, and we do want competitive matches and meaningful matches. And we've seen this year, we've said it a lot on this show, that on its day, anyone can beat anyone in League One, and West Wales have just added further evidence to that claim for this season. And ultimately, again, like you, bitterly disappointed that it came against the Bears on Saturday, and really disappointing to see the team lose. But if West Wales can kick on from this, and it means that League One is stronger as a whole, and that's only good for every team involved, and particularly the expansion clubs such as the Bears, such as West Wales, such as whether we get Ottawa and New York in the future, and even North Wales and the Scholars to some extent. If everybody else has upped their game, then it's a more meaningful league, isn't it? And that those young players that clubs like the Bears bring through are going to get better experience and hopefully set themselves up to climb the ladder, either with the Bears or if they get spotted like someone like Jason Bass and get plucked from a higher club. This is all a good thing, isn't it? And it's very easy online for somebody to look at previous results and start quoting stats at you about what the average margin of defeat has been for home games for West Wales, and how the Bears are obviously a disgrace and terrible at rugby league because they lost one game. And it's so easy to say all that online, but the reality of it is that this is sport. People, things don't always go to script in sport, and like we're saying, this could potentially be really good for the game as a whole. It's just frustrating that the touch paper was lit against the Bears.
Yeah, I mean, overall, if you look at it more widely, it's a positive day for the sport. Had West Wales gone all this season without winning, again, there would have been lots of negativity around that. I think it's a positive first step for them. As Alan says, it's a milestone for them. It's that monkey off their back. They can think about progressing from here. They'll be looking to see if they can pick up some more points before the end of the season. And they'll be looking to build upon that next year. I mean, it is only positive for this sport. I mean, there is, unfortunately, a lot of people in the game who are happy with the status quo. They would rather the likes of West Wales and Coventry and Scholars and other expansion teams stay down the bottom where they think they belong. But actually, it's positive for our whole sport if these outposts of rugby league, like the West Wales, like the Bears, that these teams continue, that we continue to progress and make it a competitive league. League One has been really good this year. I mean, if you look at the results all season, there's been plenty of what you would consider shock results, unexpected results. There's been plenty of results that haven't gone the way that everyone expected. So it's a competitive league, and that's all you can ask for. I mean, it's been brilliant. I mean, I think the removal of the sort of big spending teams that have come in over the last few years has evened things up. But equally, the teams at the bottom have got better and better every season, and that shows on the pitch. It absolutely does. You know, there's still some one-sided games, as you get in every league. I mean, if you look at the Championship, and even Super League has had a few games this year that have been 60, 70 points. So it happens in every league, but League One certainly, as an overall division, is looking really solid at the moment.
Yeah. So credit obviously to West Wales for the win, and I think credit to the Bears, obviously not necessarily for the performance, but for that reaction and what has happened since. I think, you know, it's almost a strange thing to say, but I'm very, very proud to be involved with this club, the way that they've handled themselves in the aftermath of that defeat. Because as we were saying at the top of this, other clubs have behaved in far less impressive ways when results haven't gone their way. So I think credit to both sides for all of that. Just curious, before we round off, obviously the Bears are going into a break now, so they've got a bit of time to reflect and lick their wounds and hopefully get some injured players back on the pitch ready for the visit of Keighley at the start of August. But we've now got 5 games left, and I think the Bears are probably, if they did an honest review of where we're at right now, they're probably not hitting the targets they would have wanted to be hitting, and there are various factors as to why that's happening. But what do you think Saturday's result in particular means for the rest of the season, Craig? Do you think actually this is something that the squad can use to motivate themselves to just sort of really make sure they finish the season in an appropriate manner, and hopefully in a way that almost reflected how they started it?
I think in some ways it'll take the pressure off a bit. I certainly think probably, as well as a good West Wales performance, I think probably some of the players that were in the squad possibly felt pressure at the weekend because they're expected to win. The Bears won't be expected to win any of the remaining games, and they can just go out there, the players, and put in their best performance. That we want to put this result behind them. Looking at how the Bears have bounced back previously from disappointing results, I don't think it'll be a factor for the players in terms of confidence or anything else. I think really what they've got to do is they'll be looking at potentially the North Wales game away, as that's a potential winnable game. They'll be wanting to put right some, what was a fairly disappointing performance against them at home. And they'll be targeting the 3 home games, remaining home games, surely as ones to win. I think any outside chance, and it was very much an outside chance of hitting a top 6 position, has gone now. So the Bears really are just playing for pride. They might be able to reel in 1 or 2 of the teams above them potentially, but they can just relax and there's an opportunity for Tom to, with the injury list as it is, to look at some of the younger players in the squad and look at players potentially that we might be looking to re-sign for next season as well. So as a fan as well, I think, as we do most weeks, I'm going to go to the games and just enjoy it. And the Bears usually do finish the season quite strongly once they get through that middle period of the season. So I'm pretty sure that we'll pick up another couple of wins before the end of the season.
Yeah, good stuff. Lots of positive things still to look forward to the remainder of this season. I think we may as well. I mean, there's not that much more to say, I don't think, about Saturday. So I think we'll leave it there, and we will obviously credit both teams with how they've reacted and all of that kind of stuff, and wish them well on their week off. The week off, of course, one of the reasons there is a week off is because it's Challenge Cup Super Saturday this Saturday, which is a kind of different territory to what we normally go on, but feels like it's worth mentioning before we round off this episode. So obviously the doubleheader of the men's semi-finals, I think Hull Warrington is the trickier one to call. I think much as I'd love to see Halifax overturn St Helens, I struggle to see that happening in reality. But the one I'm really looking forward to, and the one that my 15-week-old son is eager to watch with me as well, also he tells me, is the women's final at 11:15, which is going to be on the BBC Sport app and on the BBC Sport Red Button stuff. And that, I mean, that was an amazing match last year, and Castleford, who lost last year, they've improved a lot this year. Leeds are perhaps sort of battling through. It's going to be a great day of rugby league on Saturday, isn't it, Craig? And it's all on the BBC, so loads of people can just park themselves on the sofa and just indulge.
Yeah, I think actually there'll be a big crowd for that. Castleford have been setting all sorts of records this year. I think they've had 1,500 plus at most of their home games, which in women's sport is phenomenal, and particularly in rugby league. I mean, that's a higher attendance than a lot of clubs get, and full stop. So it's fantastic for them. I think they won. What did they win by? 900 points.
100-0. Yeah. Yeah,
in the semi-final. I think that from what I gather this year, they've signed a lot of very good players, and they've improved massively on the year before. So Cast against Leeds is a great final, and I would absolutely say to anyone who hasn't seen women's rugby league to watch it, because you will be pleasantly surprised at how good the games are, the quality of the play, the ferociousness of the hits. And I've watched thanks to our league and the fact that we had a Women's Challenge Cup game at the Bears a few weeks ago, watched a lot of women's rugby league this year, and it's been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. I would back that wholeheartedly. I was going to say, even the game at the Bears that was ultimately quite one-sided in terms of result, it was still a lot of competition on that pitch and at a really high skill level, and that sounds like a very disparaging thing to say, actually. You would expect that from clubs at this level, but it's the kind of thing that people might not necessarily expect from the women's game if they've never watched it, but it will be a terrific spectacle on Saturday. I have no doubts whatsoever. And then the two men's semi-finals to back that up. I mean, I'm probably expecting St Helens to win quite comfortably, but that Hull Warrington game, I've got a sneaky feeling Hull are going to win that. I think Warrington are going to just derail themselves like they always do, but it's certainly going to be interesting to watch, and I'm actually quite looking forward to just having a weekend of watching a bit of a rugby league spectacle and just being able to enjoy that and not worrying so much about what the Bears are up to, and then coming back to the Bears a week after for that home game against Keighley, and fingers crossed, as long as the printing goes well, the launch of the book as well. It's going to be a great day. So a good couple of weeks in store for rugby league fans and for Bears fans everywhere, I reckon. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think the Keighley game is going to be really interesting. Bears will be looking to bounce back, but also Keighley will as well. They've had a couple of what they consider bad results recently, especially they don't seem to travel very well. So that's going to be a keenly contested game. And as you say, fingers crossed that the Bears will have a few players back for that one. I think that's going to be an absolute cracker of a game. I think that'll be a pretty high scoring game, and hopefully Bears will get the result in the end. Definitely. And who knows, perhaps Tom will give Mikey Russell a call again and see if he can continue his streak of always scoring hat-tricks against Keighley. But that remains to be seen. We'll be back after that Keighley game with all the reaction and analysis as we always do. But until then, enjoy the break, enjoy the Rugby League this Saturday. Don't forget, you can find us at covbearspodcast.com. We're at covbearspodcast on Twitter. We're sponsored by York's Tim, for which we're very grateful. And if you've not already, leave us a rating or review, tell a friend, do all of that stuff. But most of all, just enjoy listening to the show and come back and keep backing the Bears for the rest of this season. We'll see you after next one. Craig, thanks as always, and chat to you soon.